Hello and welcome to Frost Over the World. Later in the programme, was Copenhagen a failure? Former Chilean President Ricardo Lagos on this week's presidential election, in Chile, not the United States. Barack Obama's favourite singer, Esperanza Spalding. Esperanza means hope in Spanish. I thought you'd like to know that. And the leader of a new political party in Iraq as well. But first, Palestine, where once again the Middle East peace process is at a standstill. The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is refusing to return to the negotiating table until Israel puts a stop to settlement building in the West Bank. Last month, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that 10-month pause on new building, but excluded East Jerusalem from the deal. And he's allowing the completion of 3,000 homes already under construction in the West Bank. The agreement was further compromised when earlier this week the Israeli parliament confirmed a bill that included some West Bank settlements as national priority zones, meaning that they will now qualify, although they're in occupied territory, for millions of dollars worth of aid. Well, to hear the Palestinian reaction to all of that and more, I'm joined now from the West Bank by Saeb Erekat, the chief Palestinian negotiator. Saeb, thank you very much for joining us today. How concerned are you about these so-called national security zones?
Well, it's very, very alarming, and we really condemn with the strongest possible term this Israeli government decision to finance with $28 million the isolated settlements and settlements in general in the West Bank, and to call it a national map, which proved that their national priority in this government of Israel is to continue the settlement activities. And I hope this will be an eye-opener for the US, you and Britain, the Europeans, the Russians, the UN, that the whole talk about a settlement moratorium is nothing more than a sham and a game of deceit. Mr. Netanyahu is building now 3,500 housing units in the West Bank, thousands of housing units in East Jerusalem. He tendered 28 schools in West Bank settlements. Public building he continues to build, demolishing Palestinian homes in East Jerusalem, eviction people, deporting people. And then he allocates $28 million to subsidize settlers in the West Bank. And he is planning to add 10,000 settlers in the West Bank settlements in the next 10 months at the average of 1,000 settlers a month, more than any natural growth anywhere in Israel or maybe in the Middle East.
The Israeli government, though, say that far more Israeli Arabs than Jewish settlers will benefit from this program, 8 times as many, in fact. So what do you say to that?
That's absolutely unfounded, baseless, and nonsense, actually. Look, it took, there is a party in Israel called Kadima, which is the first party in the Israeli Knesset with 28 seats in the Knesset, that motioned a vote of no confidence after this Israeli decision of this Israeli government, because in their statement they said this undermines the two-state solution. See, the two-state solution is the only accepted formula and realistic formula, Sir David. You and I and every sane person on this earth knows that at the end of the day, that to solve this conflict, you need a Palestinian state on the 67 borders to live inside the state of Israel in peace and security. Now, what this Israeli government is doing is eating up, stealing the land that's allocated for the Palestinian state. That's the meaning of settlements. So if they want to undermine the two-state solution, they cannot try to find pretexts and excuses by saying Arabs will benefit. How can Arab benefit out of this? Arabs are seeking to have their own independent states. If he's referring to the Israeli Arabs, 1.5 million, they are Israelis. And I don't think nations should discriminate of its citizens because of their religion.
What can be done about this, though? I mean, every development like this makes it harder to come to any settlement, any agreement.
Well, Sir David, that's exactly the point. When we speak to the Americans or the Europeans or other members of the quartet, we ask them this question: what's now? Netanyahu told you that he would have a settlement moratorium. I think if you accept this, you should change the definition of moratorium in Oxford English Dictionary. Because when he continues to build 3,500 housing units to subsidize settlements with tens of millions of dollars to add public buildings, thousands of housing units in Jerusalem, confiscating Palestinian land. That's undermining the whole concept of two-state solution. So are you going to continue treating the government of Israel as a country above the laws of man and a government above the laws of man? And isn't it a national interest now for the US and Europeans and Russians and others to see to it that we put an end to this conflict in this region by two states? And don't you see the bigger picture in the region, that if the two-state solution fails because of the settlement activities and because of the dictation by Israeli governments, it means that extremists will prevail in this region? Can people look at the bigger picture? So what should be done is a matrix of sense and sensibility of what, in order to reach an agreement between any conflicting parties, you need to create a matrix of interests. Israel so far is not believing that it's an Israeli interest to have peace based on a two-state solution. They believe that their interest lies on more settlements, occupation, dictation, incursions, arrest of people, roadblocks, and so on, which is absolutely proved fatal. This is the burying ground of peace and moderation and stability in this region.
And talking about violence, though, last Friday, a mosque in the West Bank was set on fire. Are you worried that violence may break out on a wider level between settlers and Palestinians in the West Bank and elsewhere?
I'm extremely worried. Not that the violence will break between Palestinians and settlers. See, there is no equating between the two. Settlers are armed to their teeth, protected by the Israeli army. But I want to stand at this question. Settlers have been burning homes, burning farms, burning schools, burning cars, attacking Palestinians, killing Palestinians, assassinating Palestinians. And now they go in daylight to a mosque and set fire on that mosque. I think from all people on earth, Israelis and Jews should stand up now and should be very, very much concerned. Very, very much concerned. This is the result of occupation. This is what you breed when you continue to be an occupier for 42 years. And I don't need to remind them where the beginning of the burning of things happened. I don't want to equate anything with anything, but I'm saying it's a very dangerous development. And it should be really an awakening call. It should be an alarming bell for all Israelis and all those concerned about Israel to stop this development of such racist, extremists, violent people called the Israeli settlers in the West Bank, who have no limits of terrorizing Palestinians and by the protection of the Israeli army.
And tell me, there's been some talk, Saeb, of Fatah launching a third intifada. President Abbas doesn't support this, but what if other Palestinians do?
I don't think people plan, just to be violent, or they're born violent, or they're born desperate. Desperation leads to desperate acts. And the Israelis much weigh the consequences of their actions. And the international community, and above all, the United States, must weigh the consequences of this region going in the hands of extremism and violence.
Mahmoud Abbas has suggested that he'll not contest the next round of elections. And when he said it, it was a big surprise. Do you think you'll be able to persuade him to run?
Well, look, when Abu Mazen, when my president took his decision not to run for the elections, he did not do that because he was getting old, or he was despair, or he was making tactics or maneuvers. The whole idea of a Palestinian president office, Palestinian prime minister, Palestinian authority, was born in order to facilitate the institution building for the Palestinian state. Now, President Abbas saw that Israel has became the source of authority, and he as a president, me as a negotiator, Salam Fayyad as a prime minister, we're just, paying the salaries, doing projects, and while the Israelis continue to dictate when Abu Mazen wants to go to Amman, he needs to seek their permission. So Abu Mazen said, no, this cannot stand. This cannot stand. We enter this peace process in order to achieve our independence, our self-determination, our freedom. And if this is not going to materialize, and if Israel thinks it can continue to being the source of our authority forever, this will not happen. So we're trying our best to tell Abu Mazen, as we did in the Central Council of the PLO, you are the president till the next elections, because on the other hand, Hamas is not allowing us to have elections in Gaza, so elections are derailed. So we asked Abu Mazen officially, and I hope he will adhere to us and listen to us, and adopt our resolution, that he will continue to be the president till the next elections. And then in the next elections, if there are elections, it's Fatah Central Committee, where I and Abu Mazen are members, will decide on who the candidate will be. And I think it will be Abu Mazen.
You think it'll be Abu Mazen? And you think the elections will be delayed? Have they signed the document?
Well, I think officially now Hamas have said officially that they will not allow the election commission to work in Gaza. They moved to arrest the people who were supposed to do the canvass and registration. So we're not going to commit the mistake of carrying out the election in the West Bank in isolation from Gaza. Now in the Egyptian reconciliation attempts, there is a date that's suggesting now, which is June 28, 2010. I hope that Hamas will sign the document, and I hope that we will see the presidential elections and legislative elections on June 28, and that's the earliest possible time we can think of.
June the 28th, then, right. Hamas celebrated its anniversary this week, of course. Are you any closer to reconciliation with them?
Well, you know, the Egyptians did that for 2 years. We talked to them for 8 months recently. Hamas is a Palestinian political party. They won the elections. Now we signed this document. Hamas is refusing to sign. Hamas is refusing to go to elections. So what we said to Hamas, there is no military solution for our problem. You are Palestinians, we're Palestinians. Let us, when we have differences, and we do have differences, let us not resort to bullets. Let us resort to ballots. And so far, we are unable to convince Hamas of this. We have a deep problem. We have a deep, major problem. And this Palestinian division has become a major sword waved on our heads by Netanyahu and his government.
And do you think that if Marwan Barghouti was released by the Israelis, that he could help to bring Hamas and Fatah together?
The document is already signed, Sir David. We signed it in Egypt. Hamas needs to go and sign this document and should accept that Palestinians, when they have differences, they should never resort to bullets. Ballots is the answer. We cannot survive without being fully democratic, and I hope Hamas will weigh the consequences of the continuation of its coup d'etat by means of force in Gaza. It's destroying us.
Thank you very much. And we'll have the Israeli response to what Saeb Erekat had to say today on the first program of the new year on January the 8th.